Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Andrea Shanowski from Freedom Chiropractic and Holistic Health in the Peoria Metro Center and our YouTube channel, Health and Horsepower. I wanted to do something a little bit different today that I haven't done in a little while. I have been talking to a lot of moms and other patients in my office recently about sleep issues, not being able to get to sleep, waking up multiple times in the night, whether they are just waking up for no reason, waking up to use the bathroom, or wake up and just cannot get back to sleep. So I thought it would be appropriate today to talk a little bit more about how to get great sleep without medication. Now, I have not done this for a while, but I was actually going to do a short little class today. I have some slides that have a lot of great information, statistics, so that we can really understand how sleep literally affects our life and our function, and maybe even some things that you didn't know about sleep deprivation. Because let's face it, a lot of times as moms and as women, we put everybody's care ahead of ourselves and we may not be getting the best sleep. So I wanted to really just kind of give you some idea about what's going on when there's sleep deprivation that is happening, what's going on if you're having sleep issues. I also had some tips on how to change our sleep hygiene so that we are changing some of our lifestyle factors and eating habits so that they're not interfering with our sleep cycle. But if you're still having continued issues, I also have some suggestions for other things that we can look into that could be possibly alerting us to some other health conditions that maybe need some help. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Here we go. Okay, so I am going to pull up here. There we go. All right, so hopefully you can see all this. It's loading, there we go. So really when it comes down to it, when it comes to sleep, we want to, number one, get great sleep, but we don't necessarily want to use medication. So a lot of times that means that we are going to need to understand what's going on. So before we really get into things, I want to talk a little bit more about how sleep issues are universal. They cross every single age group, they cross male and female, and they even affect doctors, moms, as well as other things in our life. So when it comes down to it, about 55% of adults experience problems with sleep or insomnia in their lifetime. That means it is more than half the population that has sleep issues at one point in their lifetime. Now, when we look a little bit deeper, that sleep deprivation or not getting enough sleep has been linked to not only motor vehicle accidents, it's been linked to industrial disasters, as well as medical and occupational errors. So we're going to talk and dive a little bit more into that, just so you can really understand how impactful that sleep deprivation can be for not only you as a mom or a woman, but also you as a man, or like I said, because sleep deprivation issues are affecting pretty much all ages and stages, all sexes, we want to make sure that we understand how and what we can do about that. So when we look at some of the accidents that have been linked to sleep deprivation, in 1979, there was a 3 Mile Island nuclear accident that was actually linked with sleep deprivation. In 1986, there was a Chernobyl nuclear meltdown. We also had the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion that happened in 1986 as well, that's been linked with sleep issues. In 1989, we had an oil spill in Alaska. We also had the Star Princess cruise ship that grounded in Alaska in 95. And we also had in 2009 the Collegian Air Flight, or Colgan Air Flight 3407 that crashed in Buffalo, New York. There have been many more. Those are probably the biggest ones that I have found and I thought were the most interesting because, as you can see, those are spanning years of time, and we can see that there's quite an impact for some of those as well. So today what I really want to talk about is, again, some more facts and statistics, how that sleep is affecting not only your life, but also some other health issues that can be associated with it. I want to talk about some of the consequences and other health conditions that are linked with sleep deprivation. And then I also want to talk about some of the causes, as well as 9 things that we can start doing today to help our bodies get better sleep so that we can rest and heal. So the National Center for Health Statistics actually did a survey of almost 75,000 adults and found that about 35.3% of adults are getting less than 7 hours of sleep per night. about 37.9% were falling asleep unintentionally during the day, and about 4.7% were falling asleep while driving or nodding off while driving. So as you can see, that is very concerning because we have a lot of people that are dealing with sleep issues. Typically, when it comes to sleep, the recommendation has always been 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. That study that they found, that statistic's actually done on men. So women actually need more like 9 to 10 hours. And when they are dealing with hormone imbalance issues or hormone changes, so whether that is due to menstrual cycle or menopause or pregnancy, we may need up to 10 or 11 hours of sleep to recover from the day and also the energy demands that our hormones cause on us. Now, there's also been some studies that look specifically from the National Center of Health Statistics, looking at sleep behaviors in 12 different states. They found, like I said, this crosses every single age range. So from 18 to over 65, we are having people that are in the 30s and 40% falling asleep unintentionally at least once in the past month. And there are, again, depending on the age range, and this one I think kind of tells us a little bit more about our lovely college students or young adults that are in the workforce. But we are having people that are nodding off or falling asleep while driving. Now, if you look at this graph, the 25 to 35 age range, so that means that adults between 25 and 35, 7.2% of them were nodding off or falling asleep while driving. 35 to 45, that percentage goes to 5.7. So you may or may not know this, but usually most of us moms are in that age range. When they broke it down by ethnicity, again, we can see that that is pretty strong across every race, ethnicity. We can see that strong across the sexes as well. Obviously, males are having a bit more trouble with falling asleep than women, almost 1.5 points higher in percentage. When we look at National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, they actually have linked drowsy driving, so not necessarily falling asleep, but being tired or fatigued when you're driving has been responsible for 100,000 accidents, 40,000 injuries, and 1,550 deaths every year because of fatigue and because of issues with sleep and sleep deprivation. So very important to realize that driving a motor vehicle while we're tired or sleeping or nodding off can be a big factor because that's putting not only yourself in danger, but your passengers and other people on the road as well. Now, occupational and environmental medicine, when we look at what happens, so if we have a sleep loss of 4 to 8 hours, so say you had a really rough week, or staying up late with the kids or projects, that loss of sleep actually is equivalent to basically a blood alcohol content of 0.08 to 0.1, which is basically buzzed driving. So when you are sleep deprived, it does definitely impact your reaction time. It is going to affect a lot of different things with your judgment as well. So really important to realize that sleep is a huge thing. The National Institutes of Medicine looked at medical doctors and also kind of what sleep deprivation has been linked to in the medical world. And they found that there's 1 million injuries that happen, as well as 50,000 to 100,000 deaths every single year due to preventable medical errors. So there have been a lot of laws that have been passed recently about how many hours and how much break time that nurses as well as doctors have to take in between their shifts. However, we know right now there are a lot of medical clinics and hospitals that are working understaffed. People are taking double shifts and going without sleep. We're trying to grab a couple hours here and there at the hospital or at their clinic to be able to jump and be back in on the floor when necessary. So that can definitely affect your medical care as well. So some of the consequences of sleep deprivation, which again, I think this is super important to understand, we are going to have not only decreased productivity, so you're not going to be able to get as much done when you are fatigued and not really functioning at 100% capacity. It's going to actually impact your concentration, your alertness. Obviously, energy is going to be a big one. That's kind of a given there. We're also going to have issues with actually making memory. So if you are trying to stay up late and cram for a test, or if you're trying to remember things without sleep, that may actually do the opposite and actually cause some issues where your body cannot make memory, because typically when you are trying to memorize things, that has to have only an impact where it's being held in your brain, but we have to have a sleep cycle to help us save that memory as well. We will have a decreased reaction time, as obvious since we talked about some of the motor vehicle accidents. We'll have an increased risk of errors and accidents as well. Chronic health conditions have also been linked with sleep deprivation. About 90% of insomniacs, or people that are dealing with difficulty sleeping, also suffer from depression. So that is going to impact your mental health as well. Some other health risks that are associated with sleep deprivation include depression, anxiety, fatigue, sexual dysfunction, as well as cardiovascular disease, obesity, as well as diabetes, hypertension or high blood pressure. We can also get muscle aches because if your body is not able to sleep, that's your really recovery time from the day. So if you aren't yet getting proper sleep, your body cannot recover throughout the night and heal like it's supposed to do. And that can also lead to increased levels of pain. In some cases, when we have sleep deprivation, we can see some personality changes where we're more irritable or snapping at people. In some cases, because again, we are getting quite a bit of brain function that's not recovering from the day. We can also get a loss of balance due to either blood flow issues from the cardiovascular impact or potentially even your cerebellum, which is the small little portion at the base of your brainstem that helps with balance. So some of the causes that can be associated with insomnia. Now, these are not all encompassing. There are many more, but one big one is stress. When you are under chronic stress or just stress in general, your body is going to activate that HPA axis. And if that HPA axis, which is your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal, are not quite balanced, that can affect not only your mood and your mental health, it can affect anxiety and depression. Pituitary function is going to affect more of your hormones. And then the adrenal is actually going to impact and throw off your circadian rhythm so that your adrenal hormones, namely cortisol, can actually decrease your production of some of your sleep hormones and your brain being able to calm down from the day. So that can actually interfere with how you sleep. Anxiety is another one because when we have a lot of anxiety issues, again, that's impacting that hypothalamus and also the adrenal and that HPA axis. So those are huge things with anxiety and depression. Medications can be another one. There are some medications that can cause some hormone imbalance. It can also impact the HPA axis again and cause issues where you are not sleeping well, not recovering well. A lot of sleep medicines that I have seen have actually caused issues where you're not necessarily getting good deep sleep. You're sleeping, but it's not necessarily the restful sleep where your body is recovering from the day. Some other things that can impact that are caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol. A lot of stimulants and even some of our marijuana that does some depression can also impact those same hormone pathways as well. There are also certain medical conditions, so everything from sleep apnea to autoimmune diseases to other issues with hormones or fertility issues that can also be a factor. If you have a change in your environment or your work schedule, that can also be a big impact. We tend to be creatures of habit. We get into a routine and our body kind of programs with that circadian rhythm. So when you change your environment and things are different, maybe there's more light, maybe there's less light, maybe you're having to get up at a different time or the bed is uncomfortable, that can definitely be a factor for you too. Poor sleep habits is a big one, but that is definitely something that is correctable. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how to look at our current sleeping habits and improve those so we can get some improvements in our sleep. Eating too much late in the evening can typically fill up your belly, and that stress response in your stomach can impact not only digestion, where your body is not turning on your sleep hormones because you're having to digest, but a lot of times eating late at night can also cause some issues where your body is not able to digest that well. And then we can have some issues with reflux or GERD at night when we lay down, or some discomfort in our stomach as we lay down. Melatonin deficiency is another one that I see. I know a lot of people like to take melatonin to help with sleep. However, I am not a fan of that unless we know for a fact you have a melatonin deficiency. Because if you don't have a melatonin deficiency and you're adding it in, you're teaching your body not to make more melatonin, and that's going to set you up for failure later on, because that melatonin is what actually helps you to stay asleep throughout the night and also make sure that you're getting good quality sleep and rest and recovery. So if we look at melatonin a little bit more closely, at the top of the screen, you'll see the eyeball. So typically our body's signal for when we produce melatonin, which is that sleeping hormone, is darkness. So when you have darkness go into your eye and hit your retina, that tells your body, hey, let's go ahead and start making that melatonin. So many of you have heard of tryptophan. We know that that is a big factor with turkey. We know that when you after eat turkey, you tend to get sleepy. And that's because turkey has tryptophan in it, which is a precursor for melatonin. So if we look at this, We have tryptophan turns into 5-HTP, you may have heard of. That's a precursor for not only serotonin, which is your happy hormone, but serotonin has also been linked with a lot of other conditions, everything from digestive issues to motivation to problems with attention span. And then that also turns into N-acetyl serotonin, as well as melatonin eventually, where that gets released into your capillary. So as you can see, there is some signaling going on with that. So again, darkness on the eye is what's signaling the production of kind of those melatonin precursors, and those turn into eventually melatonin that gets released in the bloodstream to help you sleep. So that is definitely something we'll be talking about, how to help make sure that we are encouraging our body to produce melatonin and some of the things in our environment that can actually work against that as well. So I think this is super important to understand how much your sleep routine and cycle has to do with your lifestyle habits. So let's start with number one. We want to make sure that we are sticking to a sleep schedule and a bedtime routine. So we want to signal to our body, hey, we're getting ready for bed. Let's go ahead and start understanding that every night we do the same routine before we go to bed. So I know for my kiddos, we typically make sure we get PJs on. We make sure that we have eaten our last snacks. We're not getting up and having to be hungry in the middle of the night. And then we brush our teeth. Typically, we read either quietly in our rooms, or a lot of times I'll read books to my youngest, Tori, or she'll read them to me, depending on what she's in the mood for that day. But if we have a sleep schedule, so the same time every night, we start doing that routine, we start getting into that habit of maybe you have a cup of tea or something warm to drink late at night to kind of get that warmth and stimulation. I know some people do a warm cup of milk, others do tea. I've seen some that do hot chocolate. Obviously, sugar is a factor with that one, but we want to make sure that we kind of have a routine. So one big thing is knowing that if we are changing our sleep schedule, so say some nights we get ready at 8, sometimes 10, 11, and you're all over the place, it's going to be really hard for your body to know, okay, what time are we actually going to sleep? When do we need to start producing that melatonin to help us get good sleep and start calming down our brain waves so that we can actually sleep and go into sleep well. Another thing is introducing relaxation techniques. So if you are one of the people that tends to have a million things racing around your head, everything you have to do the next day, it might be helpful for you to have a notebook or even sometimes on your phone. I know sometimes I will, if I've got a million things in my head, I'll write myself an email with everything I'm thinking of, and then I can take care of it when I get to the office. But if we're having to run that through our head, sometimes that will keep us up because we're trying to remember. So a lot of times being able to write that down on a piece of paper, send yourself an email, whatever it may be to get it out of your head. And then relaxation techniques can be anything from yoga, like stretching before bed. I have some patients that do foot soaks and Epsom salt soaks before bed to kind of get that relaxation, since magnesium from the Epsom salt soaks can be helpful. I have some that do deep breathing exercises or meditation before bed, whatever works for you to get you in the right mindset to calm down. Some exercises can be kind of energetic, and they can actually wake you up. So you want to make sure if you're going to be doing exercise to kind of fatigue yourself at the end of the day, you don't want something that's like pumping you up and getting you excited. You want more something that's kind of cooling you down. So typically going for a walk, doing stretches, doing yoga, doing meditation or breathing exercises would be a good thing that you could do before bed. Another thing that's really important is understanding that when we have light exposure, remember, we need darkness to signal our body to make melatonin. So if you are going to be watching TV or reading a book, you want to make sure that you are turning off the brightness, using dimmer lighting. If you're on your phone, you want to make sure that you are turning as much of that brightness down. So if you have a TV that you can change the dynamic to, like, say, movie mode, where the screen is dimmer and doesn't let off as much brightness, that can be helpful. Obviously, no TV or lit screens would be best, but if you are going to have to do that or it's part of your routine, it might be a good idea to turn on where the brightness is all the way down, or sometimes even turning up the contrast so it's more of like a gray or black and white style screen, so the light and colors aren't throwing as much light as you. If you are going to be reading, or say you have lighting overhead, I usually recommend dimming those down and maybe getting like a lamp on your side table, or putting a scarf or something over top of the lamp to dim the lighting, but not necessarily be a fire hazard. The other thing too is if you have some of these smart bulbs that are out there, you can also set a routine where your smart home system can actually dim that lighting by a certain percentage at a specific time every night to kind of signal to you, hey, it's time to dim the lights, time to get ready for bed, and helping you with that. I know for me personally, on my cell phone, I have a do not disturb mode that gets activated at a specific time. And usually about 20, 30 minutes after that, my screen brightness dims automatically for me. So if I'm on my phone doing something and I'm losing track of time, I know, okay, I've got this do not disturb mode, so I'm not going to be getting a lot of alerts and things that are keeping me picking up my phone. And then when I get that blue screen turn off, that's my bedtime mode. That's like, okay, time to put the phone down, set it aside, time to start winding down and getting in that routine. Now, another thing is bedrooms should be restful. So if you tend to say do homework or work on work projects in the bedroom, if you tend to have loud sound systems, or if you have your TV and surround sound really bright or really loud, it may be a good idea to force yourself to maybe not like watch TV in bed or have all that going at around bedtime. So it's fine during the day, but I would say after a certain time, especially as we're getting closer to that routine, you would probably want to move that to another room or turn those off so that they are not keeping you up and awake and alert and stimulated as you're trying to get to sleep. Another thing is, I know I talked already about this, but if you are eating before bedtime, that can fill up your stomach and not give your body a chance to digest. So if you are eating within 2 hours of sleeping, the blood sugar ups and downs, as well as that digestion process, can interfere with sleep. I know I have a lot of patients that complain of issues with reflux at night. A lot of times that can also indicate some digestive issues. Typically, your stomach acid, if it is strong enough and there's enough of it, your body should be able to break down and basically push that food out of your stomach within 45 minutes. So if you have a hernia, if you have another health issue, or potentially some digestive dysfunction going on, and that food's coming back up on you, it might be a good idea to find out more about how we can help in our office with improving digestion so that your body can push that through and potentially reduce some of that irritation in the stomach so we're not having reflux or GERD at night. Eliminating caffeine. So caffeine is a stimulant. I mentioned this already. When we have a stimulant that is going to interfere with the sleep hormone, so typically you want to make sure that you are eliminating caffeine, especially after 2 p.m. A lot of times that caffeine, because it is kind of increasing and overstimulating, it's also going to overstimulate the HPA axis disorders, and that's going to directly affect a lot of your hormone functions as well. Sugar intake is another one. So like I said, typically you don't want to stimulate yourself before bed. So if you're doing lots of sugary foods or sweet treats, that can be a problem. So maybe looking into a healthier snack if you're going to do snacks before bed, or like I said, setting a cutoff time for when we eat last before we go to sleep and making sure that we're making healthier choices. A natural sleep aid can also be really helpful. So again, I am not a big proponent of melatonin unless we know for a fact we have a melatonin deficiency. I've had some patients that were taking way too much melatonin, and when we actually did melatonin testing, their melatonin was still in sleep mode first thing in the morning because their body was not able to break that down and get it out of their body properly. So they were not sleeping very well, taking a ton of melatonin, waking up and still feeling tired because their body still had high levels of melatonin. So natural sleep aids like Relax and Calm can be really helpful. I'll talk to you a little bit more about what is in Relax and Calm and what to look for in a sleep aid. Typically, we want one that's non-habit forming and ideally without melatonin. Another thing that's really important is if you are not seeing results with some of these changes, so say you already have a routine, you've been doing relaxation, you've dimmed the lights, you've really focused on some of the eating habits before bed, and you're not seeing results by adding a sleep aid, we might want to get some further testing, which I'll talk to you more about that too in just a minute. So when it comes to Relax and Calm, this is a product that is produced by Aceva. We carry it in our office shortly. I'm hoping within the next month or two, I will be having some products available to purchase on our website and ship directly to you. But this Relax and Calm helps to lower high cortisol levels. So if you have your cortisol or that adrenal hormone spiking or raising in the evening and nighttime and interfering with your sleep, that's going to help lower that down so that you can actually get to sleep and not be woken up in the middle of the night. It is non-drowsy, so it's not going to make you tired and fatigued the next morning. It's going to help you sleep faster and stay asleep longer, which is always a good thing. And there's no side effects with this one. So we aren't going to have crazy dreams or we're not going to feel tired the next morning, which is a great thing. You literally use it when you need it and it's gone the next day, exactly how it should be. There is a couple different herbals in here that are really helpful. So valerian root is a natural sleep aid, which I'll talk a little bit more about. Hops and passion flower extract. There's also L-theanine and magnesium, which is a natural muscle relaxant. So valerian root has been found in multiple studies to show improved time in falling asleep, as well as getting better sleep quality and less waking up in the middle of the night. The hops actually is a natural sedative that also does help with nourishment for your blood, including red blood cells and bone marrow, liver, spleen, and also your muscles. Passion flower actually helps with relaxation and reducing stress. L-theanine is an amino acid that helps produce deeper sleep and promote that for you. And then, like I said, magnesium is a natural muscle relaxant, so that can help to relax your muscles so you fall asleep faster. And potentially, if you have restless leg syndrome, that may be a big thing you can add in as well, is additional magnesium to help with that too. So further steps, like I mentioned, sometimes you may need some additional testing. So if you've tried all those things and you have not seen a change at all in 2 weeks, I would probably recommend testing for melatonin deficiency. Typically, I like to test melatonin right before bed. And then I usually like to test like 3 a.m. to see your peak level. And then I usually test again in the morning. So we want to make sure we are producing it, it is peaking in the middle of the night, and then going back down to normal in the morning. We have a couple different levels of testing that we do in our office. We do have a melatonin test that can be done independently. We also have some testing that also incorporates hormone imbalances. So that looks at adrenal function. It can also look at your sex hormones, so estrogen, progesterone, as well as testosterone, your bioavailable hormones, to make sure that those are not contributing to sleep issues or other health concerns. So I have a test that actually incorporates all of those together, including the melatonin testing, so we can get some real answers. And in some cases, we may actually need to get a sleep study done to see if we have any issues going on with like sleep apnea problems or narcolepsy, or sometimes we could be having some issues with obstruction that's actually blocking our airways as well. So a sleep study would be tremendously helpful to know if there might be a further problem going on. So if you need additional help or feel like you're lost and you don't know where to start, or you've tried some things and they haven't worked, and you might have conflicting information from multiple sources or from multiple doctors, I would probably recommend sitting down one-on-one with me. We can do that here in the office. I also do video consultations as well to discuss your specific sleep difficulties, so we can get a plan in place, potentially looking at doing some further testing so we can get some answers for you. If you wanted to do that, you can request an appointment on our website, freedompeoria.org, or you can call our office, 309-689-6200. So hopefully you learned something today. I feel like a lot of times, when it comes down to sleep, like I said, it obviously affects every single age, every single sex, every single race. So we want to make sure we understand more about what's going on for us specifically if we're having sleep issues, as well as some steps we can take to improve that. And if you're not getting improvement in 2 weeks, I would highly recommend sitting down a consultation with me so we can figure out what testing or next steps we need to take for you. So hopefully you had a great learning experience today, and I will see you again next Wellness Wednesday. Have a great day.